All right, before we begin, I want to give Ben and the staff an opportunity to offer any housekeeping notes that you may have.
Nothing at this time.
Okay, thank you.
I have nothing either.
All right, we'll give it until 6:05 for the three members of the committee who are not present to join us, and then at that time we'll start either way.
Hey, Reverend Little, did you hear me what I said about Dr. Faulkner?
No, I don't think I heard you.
Sorry, I thought I'm unmuted. Her mother passed and the services were today, so she won't be joining.
Okay. We certainly want to lift Dr. Faulkner and her family in our prayers, and we hope that the family is comforted. It's a difficult thing to lose a loved one. Thank you, Chezia, for giving us that update. All right, I want to call this meeting of the Executive and Administrative Functions Committee to order for the Charter Review Commission. I want to start by saying that I did not schedule this meeting, and the agreement and the arrangement was that each committee chair would schedule these meetings. I have been pretty clear throughout this process that inclusion and contemplation are important parts of the democratic process, and we must be intentional about balancing our desire for efficiency and timelines with making sure that we operate in an inclusive and therefore democratic manner. This commission is supposed to meet and be convened immediately following the census. This commission was called to order at the end of 2023. This is already out of bounds and non-compliant with law. The idea that now we must rush this commission's work in order to meet deadlines for this election cycle doesn't serve the democratic process, and it doesn't serve the intention for citizens to be able to review the charter and give input. Now, if we're able to meet that deadline, then great. But we're not bound by the law to meet that deadline, given the fact that this commission has not been operating consistent with the law. And I'm not getting paid to do the work of this commission, and I don't think any of the commissioners are getting paid to do the work of this commission. I certainly did not sign up or agree to hold a committee meeting during the holidays. Didn't sign up or agree, Mr. Chairman, to be accused of advancing special interests and promoting ballot initiatives to alter the charter, especially because that's not true. And I made it clear when you made that assertion that it wasn't true, but I'm very troubled by the way you've conducted yourself since that meeting. I am accessible, but that doesn't mean that I'm accessible at all hours or all times. I'm certainly work very hard and expect to be able to take time off to rest and to replenish myself. I was extremely frustrated when I received a phone call from the comptroller who told me that he had received phone calls from the staff who had been informed by you, Mr. Chairman, that I was non-responsive during the holidays. It has taken me some time to put into perspective my feelings about your conduct and to be able to speak to this in a way that is clear and also constructive. So it is my hope that going forward, we will operate in a way that respects the agreements that we've made and that also respects the members of this commission and that also respects the time and the volunteer commitment that members make to this work. So with that, we can begin to address the business of this committee for today. I'm glad to open up the floor for discussion of the committee's functions and organizations. Again, I didn't call this meeting, nor did I set this agenda, but in the spirit of cooperation, I'm going to go along with this agenda for the time being. So, Mr. Chairman or Mr. Guthorn, if you all would like to speak to the discussion of the committee functions and its organizations, we're all ears.
Well, Reverend Little, I have a lot to say about what you just got through saying, but I won't do that. I have tried to reach you multiple times on many occasions to talk about what you were just discussing throughout the month of November, also December and January. You have never, ever responded to me. And at some point, we got the comptroller involved, but we don't need to, we don't have to go over that.
No. You raised it, so I'm going to keep going with it. Vic, when did your committee meet?
We met once in December and twice so far in January. And we know that another committee met.
Was I present at your committee meeting in December?
You were present for an hour at that meeting. Yes, you were. But as I said, I called you, texted you. We don't have to discuss it further, but we can. I wish you would have called me and we could have talked about this because I wanted to reach out. I knew you were, and I'm not quite certain about what the allegations were about me, but we could have talked about that at some other time and we can talk about it in the future. The point of the exercise here is we need to get this committee started. You are absolutely right that we do have a timeline. There is things that we can do in that timeline. So I'd like to do that. If you would like to lead these meetings, I'm open for you. And I mentioned before I called this meeting, I texted you, I emailed you, I said, let's talk. And by the way, I'm going to set up a meeting if you don't. And so I did. So as I said, we've got people who want to move on this commission and so we're trying to do that.
You don't have the right to frame issues and make fiats.
I'm not certain what you're talking about.
You don't have the right to tell me I'm going to do X, Y, and Z if you don't do X, Y, and Z.
I'm just trying to move the commission along, Reverend Little. That's it. And when you don't communicate, I don't know what's happening with this committee. So we need to move the committee along.
Victor, if somebody in a public meeting accuses you of something that you have given no indication that is true and that is not true, do you think that you've established a trust for them to want to have communication with you in private settings where you continue that kind of distortion of reality?
Reverend Little, I don't know what allegations you mean, and we could check the record. I have no idea what allegations you're talking about. You said that there are lots of special interests, and you know that I'm representing a special interest and that I'm promoting a ballot initiative. You said that in one of these meetings. It's on videotape. And you can go I said that there were a lot of people on the commission that are representative of special interests. And that's it. You know, if you were included in that, I didn't say, well, maybe I did say you were, but in terms of a ballot initiative, I didn't think you had any relationship to a ballot initiative other than the fact that you're an NAACP guy. I mean, that's it, which is true.
What is the NAACP promoting? Which ballot?
I'm not saying they're promoting anything, Reverend. I'm not saying they're promoting.
But you did say that.
I didn't say they were promoting anything. And if you think I did, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry if you took that way. It wasn't meant to be that way. It was just a recognition that we have people on the commission that are representative of interest, and that's it. Now, I see Ben's hands up. Can we bring him into the conversation?
Absolutely.
Good evening. This is Ben Guthorn, and I'm staff to the commission, acting director for Department of Legislative Reference. I just wanted to step in. I know there are obviously, a heated conversation going on right now. I did want to maybe suggest putting it to the committee president whether or not they wanted to continue this evening or whether or not they wanted to convene at a different time, convenient and as called by the Reverend, or, if there's some additional conversation that need be had offline. Certainly there is work to be done this evening, but obviously there are other things to address, and I don't want to dismiss those things. So I just want to posit that option.
Well, Ben, I'm certainly willing to hear from the other members of the committee. A lot has been said outside of the meeting, and so I took the time at the beginning of this meeting to address those things so that everybody who wants to hear them can hear what my response is. And then I said, we can move on. And if you or if the chairman would like to speak to the vision for committee functions and organization, the floor is open for that.
Well, I do, but I think I do have an agenda if we wish to pursue it, but I think Ben may be right. We can refer to the rest of the members of the committee, whether they would like to proceed tonight or to wait for a meeting scheduled by the chair of this committee.
This is Ariel Harry-Bess. This is our first meeting, and I would hope that it would have been a little bit more constructive to start, given that we're all volunteers of our time. And I guess I don't know the undercurrent of what is happening here, but I don't want it to distract from the work of Baltimore City, which is what we're here to do. So I guess if there needs to be something hashed out privately, perhaps that should be done in a different place before we move on. But I'd like it to be constructive. 3 hours is a lot of time, and I think we can get some stuff done. But I just, if something else needs to be discussed, please do it offline.
Thank you. Are there other committee members who would have input?
I will ask, Reverend Little, is it your preference to not have this meeting tonight?
No, I think we should go ahead with the meeting.
Okay.
I've said what I said. I don't have anything to say in private.
Okay, then I want to go ahead with the meeting too, but I wanted to understand what your preference was in regard to it. And so I prefer to have the meeting. I prefer to have the meeting.
Thank you.
That's fine with me also.
I am prepared to proceed.
Okay. Thank you, Ernest. All right. Well, there are 7 members of this committee. There are 4 members present. We have the chairman of the commission and the staff present. Mr. Chairman, I'm operating from 5 points that were emailed to me that I thought were the proposed agenda for the meeting. Is there a different agenda that you would like to see for this meeting?
No, I did want to, beginning with the discussion of committee functions, what I thought would be useful is that we've got 10 different, besides the besides the mayor's office, which I hope we can discuss tonight, that's Article 4 of the charter. Article 7 of the charter has 10 or 12 different departments. And my idea for how we might break that into manageable pieces would be for each one of us to take a department, look at the provisions describing that department in Article 7, take a look at the notes that the law department provided about sections in each one of those departments that the law department has flagged, and also take a look at the 2018 proposed amendments to those departments, assuming that there are some. And so bottom line is for each member of the committee to take a department. If that's the case, we can get through most of the departments. Some of them are so small we probably don't want to deal with, but some of them are quite large. And so I propose that we today, right now, basically divide up those departments. And I can talk about the departments and we can see who's interested in reviewing a particular department. How does that sound, Mr. Chairman?
Well, I mean, I think that's an acceptable approach, but we're missing 3 members of our committee this evening. So,
sorry, I am having lots of technical difficulties and have a screaming child in the background. But this is Nicholas.
Good. I'm glad you're there, Nick. Well,
can folks hear me?
We can.
Okay, I just wanted to apologize. I was having lots of technical difficulties and I had a screaming child, but I don't know if I'm being counted, but I am here now. I apologize. Nicholas Blendy. I just kept hearing about people who only 3 people or only 4 people. I wanted to make sure that I was noted that I'm in attendance now. I apologize.
That's good. We've got you, Nick. Thank you. So, Mr. Chair, we've got however many people we have. My idea is we divide up what we have. And if we have a couple of agencies that are not assigned, that's okay. We will have at least 6 or 7 of them assigned.
okay.
Okay. Let me go through the departments that we have that I think are worthwhile taking a look at for this group, which is we start with the Department of Finance. It is, you will see it in, I think, sections 25 through 31, something like that, in Article 7. Let me just go through the names of the departments, and while I'm going through the departments, consider which ones you might be interested in reviewing in this process. So we have the Department of Finance, the Department of Law, the Fire Department, Legislative Reference, Civil Service Commission, the Department of Transportation, the Department of General Services, the City Administrator's Office, and the City Police. Let me talk about the City Police for a moment. The City Police is just being established in our city charter, and there's an amendment, 23-0445, that basically outlines what is being suggested as the organization of that department in the charter. That's a really interesting discussion. It's certainly very yeasty to get into. But those are the departments to take a look at. As we go through, just before we start assigning, does anybody have any questions about any of those departments that we can sort of talk about in a general perspective here? No? Okay. So, yes, Ben, you want to chat?
I just wanted to mention that today the mayor actually did sign both of the pending bills related to the Baltimore City Police Department. So the charter amendment that had been proposed by the council was signed, as was the companion ordinance establishing other provisions related to the city police within the city code.
That's interesting. Which may mean that
impact the charter.
I'm sorry, Reverend, I couldn't hear you.
I was asking, how do today's developments impact the charter?
So with today's bill being signed by the mayor, that content that was in the charter amendment related to the police department, which establishes things like the role of the police commissioner and expands on the duties of the commissioner and police officers and several other items. I'm happy to circulate that. It will now go to the ballot during the general election and will be put to vote among those registered to vote in the city. And then, as we're all familiar, depending on how that goes, it would be added to the charter thereafter or not, depending on how the vote goes.
Okay, so maybe with the idea that it's already been signed into law, people are happy with it. Maybe we can skip that particular department. Whatever we might have to say about it probably would not be particularly welcome since it just got hatched and adopted. Reverend,
Well,
that's up to you.
I think it would be helpful if we can get a copy of what the proposed amendment from the council is, from the mayor and council.
I'm happy to do that, Reverend.
And Mr. Chairman, I think that would also put us in a position to decide whether or not this body needs to speak to the police department, or if we feel like what the council has put forward, the mayor and the council have put forward, is sufficient.
That sounds good to me. Andy, you have your hand up?
I was going to say that.
So let's move on. Let's talk about dividing some of this stuff up, assuming you are interested. Who's interested in dealing with the Department of Finance? And we're hearing that the Department of Finance may be the object of reorganization in this cycle. So it's obviously a very important department. So is anybody interested in taking a look at those provisions and seeing where we go?
Mr. Chair, I would just like to say that I am happy to take whatever is assigned to me. I may or may not have feelings about any of them, but I just want to be useful to the commission, so I will take whatever is available. And if others have other departments that they want to take, and I get the leftovers, then that will be fine with me.
Well, maybe we should do it this way. Who's interested in taking what? I mean, Andy?
I would like legislative reference.
All right, you've got it, Andy. Anyone else would like to volunteer what department you might be interested in taking? Ariel, you got to.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I believe it was the Civil Service Commission.
Terrific. Thank you. How about you, Nick?
Mr. Chair,
We can hear you.
Is BMZA involved?
No.
Or no, it's not in the executive. Okay. Just the whole zoning process is interesting to me. If that's not in play, then and civil service, I'll take whatever then. I
mean, the planning department gets close to that. Nick, do you want to fool with that?
Sure.
Okay.
So we should have the expectation that everyone's going to take two.
Yeah, full disclosure, my most interested thing is administrative appeals. However that works, because I find the city inefficient and a little out of line with other local governments, and I think it's a big efficiency issue that could help things. And I've been through some stuff, as a community association leader. So,
well, that would be right. Yeah, let me think. The BMZA let me see. I don't know that when I was looking at it today, the BMZA didn't show up, but let me see. Hey, Ben, is it there? Is it in section 7?
Give me one moment. I'll follow up.
Yeah.
I'm just all about making sure the city exhausts administrative remedies for appeal purposes, because Judge Fader taught me that in law school.
Yeah, no, and BMZA is somewhere, but yeah, it's there. Ben, Nick, it's there. So if you want BMZA, you've got it.
Without objection from others, I'd love it. Thank you.
Okay. So, who else? Reverend, do you have an interest in a particular department?
No, but if other people aren't interested in the police department and the fire department, I'm glad to take those on, but I'm very much willing to, take whatever's left.
Why don't we go ahead and give you the police and the fire department?
And Mr. Chair, if planning makes sense because of BMZA being adjacent, I'm happy to take that one on so that I have two, unless somebody else wants to take whatever else.
I don't see hear a lot of people jumping for that, Nick. So go ahead and take planning and the BMZA. That'll be great. The city administrator is also a nice yeasty little I think it's about 3 pages worth of material. Anybody want to take that? All right.
Oh, you can put me down for that, and then if the other committee members who aren't present today want to take it, then you can when we send out the notes, Ben, if you can just add that for the committee members who aren't present, if they see something that they're interested in, let us know, and then based on what it is, we'd be glad to put that on their plate.
Yes, sir.
So with that in mind, I guess we can table the rest of dividing this up until we have other members and they can express their interest. But from my perspective, this is a good start, and we can move forward with what we have here.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, could you tell me what departments are remaining?
So we've got finance, law, Department of Transportation, the Department of General Services. Those are the big ones.
Okay. I have no preference among any of those, so whichever gets assigned to me, I'm happy to take those on.
Okay, Mr. Lee. Let's see where. Well, do you want to take? They're very similar. I mean, they're not similar in content, but they're similar in size. The Department of Transportation, the Department of General Services.
Certainly.
That'd be great. So we're left with the law department, the law department, and I think that's it. The law department. I'm not a member of the commission, but I could do it. But I'm going to leave it to you, Mr. Chair, what you would like me to do. I'm just filling in.
Well, I think once the notes go out, if there's no big desire from any of the other committee members, then we'd be glad to have the help.
Okay, wonderful. So with that, I want to move to the next item on the agenda. I've asked Elena DePietro. We want to start looking at Article 4, and my idea for how we move forward is that we really go through Article 4. That's the mayor's office carefully. And then once we've, and so I've asked Elena DiPietro, who runs the Opinions and Advice Group for the Law Department, to talk about, outline basically how the mayor's office operates under Article 4. And so with that in mind, I'm asking Elena to help us out. Elena, how does the mayor's office operate under Article 4 of the charter?
Well, I was planning on just going through each section and giving, putting out the parts that are, come up most often in discussion in the various issues that hit my desk. So if we start with Section 1 of Article 4, it talks about how the mayor is elected, and that is really largely governed by state law and constitution. So we don't have a whole lot to say that we can do with that. Maybe we can play around a little bit with the qualifications, but other than that, it's pretty set in stone. I think we have to follow the Constitution and state law. The term of the mayor, again, and the date of elections are covered by in the state law as well. We can change the term should we desire. I think if anybody knows differently, let me know. I haven't looked at the Constitution since I started looking at this. And then they have the salary component, which is set by another part of the charter. And there's now a term limit that was recently enacted for all elected officials to two consecutive full terms of office. And that is starting with this election cycle. So going forward, anyone who's elected in 2024 will have can only serve 2 terms in their office. Okay, any questions about those areas? Moving on then to...
Elena, I don't have a question about those areas, but I did want you to clarify the term limit statute. Is that for every elected office in Baltimore city government, or is that for the mayor and council?
I believe it's all elected officials. So the only other elected official besides the mayor and the council would be the comptroller.
There's the sheriff. There are the other courthouse elected officials. So that's why
they would not be subject to our local legislative, our election law. They are covered by the state law. The clerk of the court and those individuals.
They're constitutional offices and not charter offices.
Right. So they would not be affected by this.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on then, the rest of, we start getting into the mayor's powers. One of them is removal. I'm sorry, let me see. Here we go. Yep, I'm on the right page. Removal of the mayor. This is a fairly new provision as well that allows the city council to remove the mayor from office for incompetency, misconduct in office, willful neglect of duty, or felony or misdemeanor in office. And they provide some more detail than was in the previous charter regarding the mechanisms that they can use to do that. And they're enumerated here as being charges preferred by the city council, a petition of at least 20% of the qualified voters of Baltimore City, or by the inspector general. But all these would require notice of the charges to be provided and an opportunity to be heard by the city council. If there is a vacancy in the mayor's office by for some other reason, death, resignation, or disqualification under that section, then the mayor, the president of the city council would serve as the mayor for the remainder of the term. Yes, question, Andy?
Yeah, so the removal of the mayor section, how does that work compared to the recall question that is being raised? I guess let me ask it differently, because the recall, I know the voters get to decide, but who would get to make the decision in this case if 20% of the vote?
Well, the council can vote by 3/4 of its members to remove the mayor for incompetency and misconduct and neglect, or conviction of a felony or misdemeanor on charges preferred by the council's Legislative Investigations Committee. Or if there's a verified petition signed by at least 20% of the voters or by the Inspector General after notice and opportunity to be heard, then there's those are the requirements for initiating the removal of the mayor.
Is the provision about the petition subject to our authority, or is it?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
These are things that they're strictly within the purview of the charter. And it was just in 2020 where these were revised pretty significantly. So we haven't, the previous issues we've had with mayors were not treated under this provision. Okay, vacancies in the office of the mayor. Again, the president of the city council would serve should the mayor be incapacitated, or if there's an absence in the mayor's office that's temporary due to illness or some other reason why the mayor could not serve for a temporary reason, the president of the city council would become the mayor ex officio until such time as the mayor was able to return to office. Then there's some housekeeping stuff about how the mayor can appoint his own staff, subject to being funded by the ordinance of estimates. And the mayor appoints the city administrator, the chief administrative officer for the city. And that is new as well. It was just in 2020 since we've hired our first city administrator. Then it talks about in section 4, we get into the general powers of the mayor. There's not a lot of enumerated powers, but he does have the power to, as conservator of the peace, which is in general, the power to call in law enforcement when there's a disturbance within the city. That's sort of archaic language and is not really something that anybody uses anymore. Not that we've had a need to in the most recent past. Let's see. They talk a little bit about reporting in the next paragraph about the expenditures of public money. The mayor has the ability to go to any director or of an agency or a department and ask for an accounting of their expenditures. And the mayor is in the state of the city is to report to the city council within sometime after the beginning of the year of each fiscal year to provide accounting of how money was expended. And that is something that's to be published for the purposes of informing the public. Then the general idea of an executive is set forth in B, which talks about the mayor as the chief executive officer. And he serves in the position of enforcing the ordinances of the city that are passed legislatively by the city council. Then finally, there's a broad economic development authority that is subject to other more specific provisions in the charter that are provided to other agencies. But in general, the mayor sets the tone for the economic development of the city, and those agencies with powers in those areas execute that. Now, the next section has been the subject of a lot of controversy lately. The approval or veto of legislation. In general, when the city council approves a piece of legislation, excuse me, it gets sent on to the mayor's office after passage and after signature by the president of the city council, verifying that it was duly passed. And when the mayor receives that legislation, he has within 3 actual regular meetings to either return it signed and approved, veto it or do nothing. If he does nothing, then it becomes law automatically. With regard to the veto process, that's in B of Section 5, this is where things get a little uncomfortable for people, depending on what is going on. It was a big issue during the passage of the redistricting ordinance this year. So it is the subject of a charter amendment that was introduced in the council. But the procedure in general is once when the mayor receives it, if he within those 3 actual regular meetings, he has to either, if he doesn't want to pass it, he has to deliver a veto message to the city council within those 3 actual regular meetings. And the actual regular meetings is actually an important tool to use when determining if the veto is consistent with the requirements of the charter, because that determines what the timing is. So the council under the current law cannot make up a meeting just for the purposes of making the timing work out in a certain way, and neither can the mayor, for that matter. So once the mayor's objections are read over by the council, they can't do anything for 5 days, calendar days, and then after that they have 20 calendar days to either override the veto or not override it, basically. But they during that 20 days, if they don't have a meeting, then the first regular meeting scheduled after that 20-day period is when they have to act by. So that has become sort of a political football in trying to figure out how to make sure that everybody gets the chance to exercise the authority that they have in the charter. And there was some sort of games being played with it, I guess you could say, that the legislation is trying to close various loopholes that people are trying to use with that. So if the council does not override the mayor's veto, then the bill is dead and it cannot be resurrected. If the council did, I think that, yeah, did I get that wrong? If they override the veto, the bill becomes law. I'm sorry, I got that wrong. If they don't override the veto, then the bill is dead, and they would have to reintroduce it in order to resurrect it again. Let's see. I think that covers most of the veto issues. Does anybody have any questions up to that point? No? It's a process that is a little unwieldy at times, but it's just, most of the time it works well. But there are times where things don't go as expected. Let's see. I'm going to skip over the items of appropriation, the veto of items of appropriation, because that's, I think, better suited to the discussion about finances. So I'll let whoever's doing that come back to that concept. So the next big area that the mayor's authority is the appointment of municipal officers. And in general, the mayor has the sole power of appointment for all municipal officers and all members of boards and commissions, because they are considered, for the most part, municipal officers. The appointments are subject to confirmation by the city council as provided for in the charter. And the city council has, 3 regular meetings to act on a nomination sent to it by the mayor. If they don't act within those 3 regular meetings, then the person is automatically confirmed and will go on to be sworn in by the mayor. If they disapprove the nomination, then they will send the name back to the mayor, and he will have to nominate another person to serve in that capacity. subject to confirmation by the same way that the first nominee was. So they have to go back through the council hearing process. Municipal officers in general serve a term that's concurrent with that of the mayor. So if they are appointed within the 4-year period of the mayor's term, they only serve till the end of that term, and then they can hold over until their successor is appointed and qualifies. But they are subject to being replaced at that time. But they can continue to serve until such time as a replacement is made.
I'm sorry, Elaine, if I could jump in and just ask a question there.
Sure.
If the mayor gets reelected, do those municipal officers have to go through the process
They do have to be
again?
reappointed, yeah, because their original terms will end even if the mayor is reelected. If the incumbent is reelected, they still have to be reappointed.
And so it follows that even if someone else is elected, if they want to keep a municipal officer, that person still has to be reappointed.
Yes, that's true. Sorry, I forgot to turn my ringer down. Yes, so they'd have to go through the confirmation process again. And there's been criticism of this provision that I can't remember, let's see what the date on it is. I think it was put in here back in, well, it's been subject to amendment since then, but I think it was right around the 96 charter revision that this was put in place. And, the thought was it might be overwhelming to have the mayor have to reappoint everybody at the beginning of this term, but because they can hold over, it's not as much of a burden as it was anticipated it might be. So there are exceptions to that, to the 4-year term, and those are boards and commissions that are governed by state law, and the ones that are enumerated in the charter are the Board of School Commissioners, the Civil Service Commission, the Planning Commission, and the Board of Municipal and Zoning Appeals. And the advisory board established in Article 10, which it's a new one. I can't remember what it is. It might be you guys. I'm not sure. I have to look that up. Let's see. Yeah, those are all set in the sections that govern those particular offices. And in one case, I think BMZA may be established by state law. Usually it's to provide for staggered terms, to give continuity to what they're considered particularly important commissions that have a lot of responsibility, and they want to make sure that there's no interruption in the number of people they're serving just because of the end of a term. So that way, there's not everyone leaving at the same time. Let's see. The mayor also has the power to remove all municipal officers at his pleasure. Except if there's exceptions already established in the charter. So if he has the power of appointment, he has the absolute power of removal as well. Boards and commissions, he may remove all members of boards and commissions that are, let's see. But they can't he can't do it unilaterally. He must have the approval of the city council. So, and again, the term limits are reiterated, and vacancies in office of members of boards and commissions or other officials are by the mayor just provided for in their particular enabling legislation. Then you have vacancies on boards and commissions. So if someone's term ends and the mayor wants to reappoint, for the first 120 days, the mayor has the sole power of appointment. After that time, if the mayor does not provide for an appointment to that particular position, let's see. I think, okay, it's in the next part. If the mayor fails to make a nomination during that time, The appointment power vests in the board of commission in which the vacancy is occurring by a majority of vote of the members of the board, but they are also still subject to city council confirmation. So the mayor, the reality is that there are quite a few that take a long time to fill, because there's a lot of boards and commissions and only so many people available to either with the expertise or just willing to serve. So if we have held when we were asked to opine on this, that if after the 120 days occurs, the appointment is not made, but the board of commission has not acted either to appoint anybody, that the mayor still can exercise his power of appointment up until the time that the board itself exercises its power. Let's see. And again, they all go through the approval, the confirmation by the city council. Let's see, officers or directors. If there's a vacancy in those types of positions, the mayor may designate someone from that particular office or agency to serve as the acting director until such time as they go through the regular appointment process. Oaths. Oaths are a funny thing. They depend on the position. The type of oath depends on the position, but any person appointed by the mayor must take an oath to qualify for office. So that means they really cannot serve in that position until they take the oath of office. So it's after they're confirmed by the council, they take the oath of office. There's actually Maryland state law on oaths that requires that the oaths be taken within 30 days of the commission letter being sent to the individual. And if the individual either refuses to take an oath or neglects to take the oath, there are some consequences under state law. We won't get into it too much, but it never happened that I know of.
I'm sorry, Lenny, if I could just jump in and ask you a question.
Sure.
Is this for all municipal commissions?
Anybody appointed by the mayor under the charter.
So what about this charter review commission? Now, not all of the people were appointed by the mayor, but some of them were, and all of us were appointed. Were the members of this commission supposed to take an oath?
Yes, you were. I believe. Well, I don't know. You might not be subject to Article 4, Section 6. Let me see. Let me look it up for y'all. Let's see. Do you recall, Vic, where this section is that establishes the it's right at the end. I see.
So to my knowledge, the Charter Review Commission does not have to get sworn in.
I think you're right. Yeah, I'm looking at it now. It doesn't say.
For example, I can't think of it at the moment. The auction board, I think they're subject to the same. Yeah,
there are a couple of boards and commissions that are not subject to the Article 4, Section 6 requirements, and they are explicitly stated in those sections what the requirements are for those offices. So, and your group is not subject to the Article 4, Section 6 appointment process. So, your board does not have to worry about that. Your commission, I mean. Let's see. We've talked about holding over. That's an important thing, actually, because you don't want a board or commission not to be able to act because it doesn't have enough members. So allowing members to hold over is an important part of maintaining the flow of decision making in the city. As far as employees go, the heads of departments are responsible for putting the employees and hiring employees. There's the final thing that's been on the books for a really long time is about minority representation on boards and commissions. And when they say minority, they mean minority party. So if the dominant party is in the city is Democrat, then we must have one Republican on all boards and commissions. It's very hard to find people willing to serve. So yes. You had a question?
That's not actually what it says. It doesn't say that a Republican has to.
No. It says the largest. You're right. You're right. Any let's see, it shall be registered who have not registered as members of the majority party. So it could be any other party, but as long as it was not the majority party exclusively on the board. So thank you for bringing that to my attention.
Or independents aren't included in that.
Well, who are not registered as members of the majority party. So I guess it could be an independent. As long as they're not registered in the majority party, they can be registered in a different party or none at all.
Or unaffiliated.
Or unaffiliated, yeah. Yep. So that's the sort of overview of the mayor's office. The big takeaway is he holds the general executive power of the city, and is a pivotal part of the legislative process, and holds the veto power as well as the appointment power. Does anybody have any questions? Nope. Okay, good. Vic, whenever you're ready to talk about the new veto legislation, let me know.
Great, and thank you, Elena. That was good. I wanted to, as we want to, people serve on these commissions because they're interested in some aspect of the work. So I wanted to make sure that at this point, if we have proposals from the members of the committee or the commission for amending something in Article 4, the mayor's office, then we can have a preliminary discussion now about what the suggestions might be. So with that in mind, does anyone here at the moment have a proposal to amend Article 4 and what that might be if you do? Andy, I was thinking that you had something.
Yeah, I think I have two things that are assigned to this committee. One is about legislative reference, and the other one is about the Office of Life that I had proposed. But I think that's in a different place. I think the Office of Nightlife one is an article. I think they're actually both in Article 7.
Legislative reference is in Article 7, and we can get to that. But if you have something there, that's something we're going to need to know. We can also ask. What was the other one that you thought?
I proposed a new city agency.
You went away. Can you speak again?
Yeah, sorry. I think I had a proposal for a new city
agency. Yes, you just sort of blanked out there, Andy. So I don't know what's happening.
All right. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I had one that was, I think, two that were about legislative reference and one that was a new agency that was the Office of Nightlife. If it's possible, I would like to talk about those later. I don't feel great and I've had a long day and I didn't prepare anything in order to discuss those today. And I can send out notes about them to the committee before the next time we meet.
I think that's preferable. I think we just want to hear today in any sort of detail about amendments to Article 4, the mayor's office.
Got you. Okay. I don't think I have any of those. I think everything's Article 7.
Great. Thank you. Does anybody have anything? Okay. Well, hearing none, then I want to move on. Elena was talking, she spent some time on the veto process, and that is now, we have a proposal from the council president to amend the veto in section 5, Elena. So if you could basically tell us what the bill does, how it changes the current process, and why the proposal, why do you think the proposal is on the table at this point?
I think it's largely because of the way it was utilized during the redistricting process. There was a lot of back and forth about how many meetings occurred when, and we were running up against another deadline in a different law. So the matter that was before the council, the redistricting, had to be either passed by the mayor or approved by the city council by a certain date. And the way the veto process, the way the passage of the bill and it's it's being, I see, it's the bill is up in front of us here, but the way that was being utilized in a way to try to sort of get around some of the deadlines was disturbing to the council. So that's why they came up with this bill, which would make it a more concrete sort of, and let the process not drag out quite so long. So instead of having 3 regular meetings in which to return a bill that he wishes to veto, the mayor would have to return it in 2 meetings. And they don't have to be regular meetings under this proposed bill. They can be special meetings that can be called by the president. So that puts some leeway and some ways to make sure they can have the time they need to respond to the mayor's objections. So somebody have a comment?
Elena.
Yeah.
Elena, can you hear me? Hey,
Yes, I can.
it's Nick. Just to give additional historical flavor, I think a lot of this was sort of an unintended consequence of when the city moved to the gubernatorial off the off-cycle election, because the election used to be in September, effectively for the primary, and then when it got put onto the presidential cycle, sort of the times got compressed, and I think that's a lot of what sort of happened. That
Nicholas, we're not hearing.
For this contention. Oh, can you hear me? Can you guys hear me? Oh, I think a lot of it was like we used to be in the off cycle.
It was just really choppy.
Year. Yeah, we used to be in the off cycle odd year election, and then when we got put on the presidential cycle, like the calendar got changed wildly for when the state board of elections needed a map to print ballots by, and I think a lot of it is sort of like legacy of that is my sort of recollection since I worked when we
that could be, yeah, that was part of it, and I think it was just exacerbated by this most recent redistricting process and the fight over the veto, how the veto power was used. The other thing that would be changed is let's see. Yeah, I think this is actually the bulk of the changes. Let me see. Would you agree with that, Ben? Is there any other changes besides the regular meetings and special meetings and the 2 meetings rather than 3 meetings?
Yeah, I do think that that's accurate. There is a little bit of something here in new section or subsection.
At the very end.
Yeah, 3 that I just want to make sure that I accurately represent.
I think that's basically the same.
Yeah.
Except, I'm not really sure what was changed there. I think that the big difference maybe is if that's not. Did they take out the part about the 20 days if it occurs?
It's just it's a little tighter. I think that the language is rewritten. I know Aaron DeGraffenreich is on if he could speak to it more specifically.
It's the president's bill, so he'd be the best person.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
So, yes, I think what Elaine described is accurate, and what Ben was saying is also accurate, that there's not a change in the current charter amendment on this that would, I don't think it's intended to take out the 5-day waiting period, but it's something we should make sure that we look at closer, because it does say that the council can take up a veto override vote at a special meeting. So the council may be able to decide to take it up within that 5-day period if they wanted to, the way it's currently written. So that's should get some more examination probably.
And just to add a little bit of context to that distinction here between a regular and a special meeting, the circumstance surrounding the redistricting vote, or the vote relating to the redistricting ordinance this year, it was the determination of the law department and the city solicitor that given the timing of how redistricting had to occur, I believe they had 60 days, is that correct, Elena, from the introduction of the original ordinance to actually act on the bill. And then it was interpreted by the law department that act on the bill also included any opportunity to override a mayoral veto. And because the veto may only be overridden currently during the course of a regularly scheduled meeting, which regularly scheduled meetings by the council are set at the beginning of each year. And so if it's not on that original schedule, it's considered a special meeting. And given just the cadence of meetings, there was no opportunity for the council to reconvene to take up an override vote of the mayor's veto of the redistricting bill as it was amended by the council. So that's the thought process about providing that opportunity for a special meeting to also take up that vote.
And the other sort of issue is, which is different in the city versus in the state. In the General Assembly, for the legislative district maps, the governor can't veto it. It's basically, my understanding, I might have it wrong, but basically it's like the legislature, the governor introduces a map, and then the legislature has 45 days to amend the map. And if they don't, the governor's map becomes law. But if they do, their map becomes law, and I don't think the governor can veto it. Whereas the mayor has veto authority in the city. Something
Aaron,
like that. There's some sort of executive power.
Yeah, I think it might even be explicit in the law that the governor does not have veto power. I can't remember.
No way Mike Miller was letting some governor tell him what he was doing with his Senate map.
Right.
And I will say, this is Ben again with legislative reference. There is I wouldn't call it a companion bill, but there is a different, and that's when I had pulled up originally, I apologize. There is a separate charter amendment that's being proposed by the council president that actually addresses the redistricting process and does in fact remove the ability of the mayor to veto the redistricting map approved by the council. So that is also addressed in this instance. So both of those put together would take away the opportunity entirely.
So if the veto charter amendment passed, it would apply only to other legislation, but not redistricting legislation.
Correct.
Okay. So that's really the purpose of the charter amendment as it stands now. You're muted, Vic.
Last night at a meeting of the Legislative and Oversight Committee, we had an extensive conversation about that bill for redistricting, which included this veto power or the blocking of the ability for the mayor to veto a redistricting plan. So at the end of the day, the committee, this committee, and ultimately the commission needs to come to an understanding whether we're going to take a position on this bill or not. And I'm not certain where we might be on this. I mean, there's not going to be a decision tonight. My preference for all these meetings is not to decide anything final until the last meeting of a committee or the last meeting of the commission. That's up to you, of course, Mr. Chair. But as I said, at the end of the day, for all of these existing legislative proposals that would amend the charter, we have to decide as a committee and then as a commission whether or not we want to take a position about whether we like what we see, whether we don't like what we see, whether we have amendments whether we would make recommendations to amend the bill in certain fashions. Andy, I see your hand up.
Mr. Chairman, do you have a comment before I ask my question? Okay. If we amend it, what happens? Since the mayor has signed it at this point, would that mean that two things went forward to the ballot?
This bill has not been adopted at this point. It's still it's still circulating. So if we have a proposal to amend it, we would offer it at the end. Although I did invite members of the city council to attend our meetings and to listen to our discussions, to present whatever they would like to present to us. So perhaps we'll get some interest by the legislators, and we can talk about proposals such as amending a particular bill.
It's possible for two charter amendments to proceed to the ballot. They try to reconcile them if at all possible. So depending on what they said, they would try to. That's how it would be handled. If they couldn't be reconciled, then that it wouldn't be enforceable.
And can that reconciliation occur after it has passed?
Sometimes it just depends whether or not it's any possibility of both of them being able to be implemented. But if it's in too much conflict, then I don't think either of them becomes law, but I'd have to check on that.
I think the relevant case law says that generally if they're in conflict, the proposal that receives more votes takes precedence. That being said, it's not entirely settled. And when I was researching the topic, it's not something that I believe has come out of Baltimore City before. There are other jurisdictions that have provisions in their charter that do discuss how to handle circumstances wherein there are two amendments proposed to the charter that are at odds with one another. And I think that certainly is something that may be considered by this commission to review, especially in this time of really increased activity at the, I would say the referendum initiated or the citizen initiated charter amendments, as well as all the various amendments being proposed by the council, because not all of them agree with one another per se.
It's an interesting, that raises an interesting legal point, Ben. And has that ever been the provisions that might exist in other charters that deal with conflicts? Have they ever been litigated? Have we ever court opinion on this, or do we have an AG opinion or anything like that? It strikes me as questionably legal, since we have a constitutional provision that talks about how we go about dealing with charter amendments.
I'd have to go back and review the cases that I'd saved. So if you provide me that opportunity, I can follow up with some more research.
I think the proposal, I think, is an interesting one and a useful one, especially if it's lawful. It certainly is the idea that we might have a provision in the charter that talks about dealing with conflict. That seems like a very useful thing to have, assuming that we have the local power to do it.
Didn't Montgomery County have a proposal a couple of years ago, I think in 2020 or 2018, that resolved this by saying the one with the more votes would be the one that would go forward? I don't know if it passed or not, but I do remember seeing that at some point. That their charter commission made a recommendation that the one with the most votes, if the two are in competition, would be the one that went into law.
I guess we're gonna have to take a look at that. It sounds actually familiar, Andy. I take a look at that.
look at the Montgomery County one, so.
Yeah. Well, the next item on my agenda is crawling through Article 4. I don't know that there's interest, if there's not interest in the committee to do that, the way what I'm talking about crawling through Article 4, I'm talking about we read every section and contemplate it, figure out if we like the language, if we have questions about more questions than we were offered when Elena's outline of it, we can do that. On the other hand, if people feel that we can just pass on it, we can. That's the last thing on my agenda. I wasn't thinking we would go later than 8 o'clock on this. Basically, I like to keep meetings to 2 hours and no more. But that, Mr. Chair, is up to you.
Can I ask Mr. Chair a question? Mr. Chair, can I ask a question?
Please.
I think it would be great if there was, I don't know, crawling through it sounds great and important, but if there would be a willingness of somebody who knows more about this than the rest of us to give us maybe some bullet point overviews or some things to look at, and then if we could assign ourselves some homework to like maybe follow up with any questions if we had with the group. And I only say this as a very selfish person who has to put a small human to bed shortly. So if the will of the group is, I will just drop off. But I'm just asking whatever you think, Mr. Chair.
Well, I think that's a fair request. I don't think anybody wants to go past 8 o'clock this evening. We have 40 minutes. So whatever the will of the body is, I'm fine with. Victor, do you want to walk us through this, or Ben, do you want to walk us through this?
I could start reading, and we see where we go with it. And as we do want to leave time, I don't know if we have any members of the public on, but we do want to leave time for any member of the public to express whatever they would like to express. So if we go past about quarter to 8. If we ask if anybody's right, does anybody, Ben, do you know if we have any member of the public on?
I don't believe that we do. There's no attendees. I did elevate 2 members using a phone. One is Mr. Blendy, and the other, which is 410960, I'm not familiar with. They're a panelist. If they could unmute themselves and just share their name, that'd be useful. And if you're a member of the public, certainly can make time.
So, Mr. Chairman, I think
Ben, I'm sorry, you calling for the phone number 410960?
Yes, is that you, Aaron?
Yeah, that's me. That's Aaron.
Oh, okay, understood. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I think the request was, and I think it's a good idea, is if rather than reading the article, if you or a member of the staff is able to give us some bullet points, and then as homework, we can go back and fully read and then respond with questions and or comments. I think that was what the suggestion was, and I think it's a good suggestion.
I'll be happy to put the bullet points together and send that out in the next few days. And so the suggestion is at the next meeting that we tackle those.
Just right here, like overview, instead of reading word for word, if you can just kind of go section by section or line by line and say, here's the important gist of this. These are the issues here. I'm interpreting what I heard.
That you've got it correct, Mr. Chair. That's what I was asking. If they could just sort of like flag what they think we should be taking a look at, or what it does without, going through super thoroughly.
Okay. The only one that I flagged when I was looking at this, hold on here. And Ben, you may also, and Elena, you may also jump in and point. Let me breeze through. Let me see, because I do have one thing, but it's a couple pages back. Let me see what we have here.
Victor, this is Ben. I'm happy to put up on the screen the recommendations that were made by the 2018 commission, so people can review those. And I'm happy to just glance over those, or not glance, excuse me, briefly just discuss those. Or
that's good. I think there were 3 that they were talking about.
Yes, that's correct. Let me just bear with me, share my screen here so everybody can see. Okay, is everybody able to see my screen? I think.
Could you make it bigger?
Yes, of course. How's that?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. So this recommendation from the 2018 Charter Commission would add language to Section 4 of Article 4, stating that, quote, the powers of a conservator of the peace include any action necessary and not contrary to law to keep the peace during a riot, disturbance, or disorderly assembly.
So what I can remember about that particular provision is that during the riots of 2015, whatever it was, we had the language that Elena mentioned about being conservator of the peace. But that language, we had to use a court document, a case, to establish what the parameters of that conservators of the peace might be. So that language that you just read, Ben, was meant to flesh out a little bit more about what that activity would be.
And having been there for that, I agree that is what 2015 was all about. And the real rub is because the state of Maryland hates the city of Baltimore historically and always has and always will, there's like a provision where the city gets held liable for like property damage that occurs during a civil unrest. And I recall then Solicitor Nilsen, probably Elena or one of the fine people on this call actually wrote the original draft. I remember all of that conversation, but I think it all had to do with protecting the city against liability for property damage from the civil unrest after Freddie Gray.
Right. That was the Department of Law involved. So thank you for remembering. That was an interesting time for the Law Department.
It was a long 2 weeks.
Then we have Ben. You want to explain?
Sure. So within the same Section 4 of Article 4, now in subsection C, in a provision that was originally titled Economic Development, language is being added to state general welfare and economic development. And the subsection C would read, subject to more specific provisions of the charter, the mayor shall have general responsibility for the, and this is added language, health, welfare, and economic development of the city that, again, added language, arise from the executive duties of the office. And the language that you can see below it, this addition captures other responsibilities that proceed from the mayor's executive duties, but does not limit them.
Yeah, and that, once again, that was, we were trying to think more comprehensively, and it does capture, once again, the what was going on with the unrest, as well as other issues that have arisen where people were questioning the limits of the mayor's powers. And the health and welfare basically is what we would normally call police power, where, you know, whatever we need to do to improve the circumstances of the residents of the city, whatever powers the mayor would have those kind of powers within his office or her office.
And for the non-lawyers, police powers doesn't mean police. It's a term of lawyer art that means inherent authority to protect the health, safety, and welfare like the health commissioner exercises police powers too.
Thanks, Nick. That's exactly right. What else do we have, Ben?
So we're now in section 6 of Article 4, which is appointments of municipal officers. And we're scrolling way down. And it's a striking of subsection K, which was holding over dual offices of profit prohibited. And the reasoning is that the Maryland Declaration of Rights, Article 35, already prohibits this and therefore unnecessary in our charter.
And that's right. We've come across that in several instances, never necessarily with the mayor, but with other offices where a dual office of profit, there are legal definitions of what an office of profit might be. But essentially, if you are exercising the powers of the jurisdiction, I'm blanking on the exact word for that, the legal word. But if you're exercising the powers of the jurisdiction, and you're being paid for it, you have an office of profit, as opposed to just being a ministerial rank employee, which really isn't exercising the governmental powers that are on the line when we talk about dual offices of profit.
You thinking of sovereignty, Vic?
Yep. Oh, that's it. Thank you, Elena. When you're exercising the sovereignty of the jurisdiction in your position as an officer of the city.
So
I have a question.
What this looks like is you can't be a member of the House of Delegates and a director, but you can be a member of the House of Delegates and be an assistant director, not holding the office of profit, but holding the ministerial level office.
That would be the interpretation, and usually in the lawyers that would be looking at that would just say, well, how far does that deputy have? What kind of actual control that deputy has? But in most instances, Mr. Cherry, that you would be correct. The deputy would probably be limited, but not the department director. So is that it for Article 4, Ben?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so one of the things that this committee can do is take a position on or offer those amendments ourselves. And I guess we would relate back to the 2018 commission, offer these amendments. We think they're a good idea. That's how probably would go forward with this. But once again, it's something that needs discussion in the committee itself. Are there questions about any of what we read or how we deal with this subject matter? I see you, Andy.
Why? What happened with them in 2018? Did the council not accept them?
What happened in 2018 was that we went to the council very late in the process. The way it works, these charter amendments have to be basically ironed out by end of July, certainly by the beginning of August. We went to the council very late with a raft of proposals to change, and we really couldn't work through those changes in the time that we had. So those were never seriously reviewed by the city council. Well, Mr. Chair, that is the end of what I had in mind for this evening.
Okay, well, I think that this conversation was helpful. I'll tell everyone what comes up for me and has been coming up for me from the beginning of this commission's work is the intersection of having the benefit of continuity and of institutional knowledge, the intersection of that with the intersection of how we perpetuate systemic and structural inequity and inequality. And so as we listen to what has been said this evening, and as we consider what was proposed in previous years, I hope that we're also using a lens that examines who's included and how people are included in this deliberative process. It doesn't mean necessarily that there are ulterior motives, malign motives, but when various perspectives and views are not included, then we miss a lot. And that is one of the issues that is pertinent to the question of the speed of our deliberations. Because if we are on a hurry up offense to get something to get something done, then we put ourselves in the position of very possibly missing what has been omitted in the previous iterations of this commission and in this present iteration. So I hope that as we think about all of the issues that were discussed this evening, we'll also think about that intersection and what it means for our work. Are there questions or comments, final comments from other members of the committee?
Mr. Chair, I just want to say thank you, and I agree. I think that there's some can be lost by hurrying up, and I think the distance and the evolution of society from what we've seen throughout cities and within Baltimore, and opportunities to approve and where people are versus where they were the last time this commission or some version of this commission met. I think we can all see with clear eyes that we have a different perspective than that did, and I just want to thank you for making that point so that we don't lose sight of it.
Thank you. Other questions or comments?
Yeah, I want to say I appreciate your point about the timeliness of this, because I have been complaining since the charter passed and we didn't get it implemented, that it needed to have been implemented a long time ago so that we weren't up against this situation. And at the same time, I want to wrestle with the necessity to do this once in a decade work as sort of outlined in the charter. So I just I hear you about that, and I don't think we should be rushing. And I hope that we have the opportunity to do meaningful discussion and democratic deliberation about it, while also not allowing the late start of the commission to stop us from being able to do anything.
Yeah, I agree with that too, because we weren't the ones who convened us first, but we're here now, and I think that everyone has made a very good point that we are, and everyone understands that we are sort of constricted by time as a real thing. So maybe as we deliberate these matters, we think about things with like a dual track in mind. Like we definitely need to not rush ourselves, but we also have to acknowledge that if something is ready to move, maybe we recommend, if we're all in agreement on a thing, that we move that, and then if we have like a more concrete recommendation for something versus something that we're wrestling with, maybe we think about it that way. But I agree. We got if we want to have any impact for the council to consider, and since they hold the real power, we have to get them something by a date certain.
Let me add too. We are reviewing the Charter Review Commission, the article that deals with that. So if we suggest changes to it, I think they would be welcome from before the city council, our views about those changes. So we do have that opportunity to impact going forward how this commission operates. Ben?
Okay, thank you.
I did just want to mention there is an Anwar Young on the line as an attendee, as a member of the public. So just wanted to point that out.
Attorney Young is a member of my staff, and as you'll recall, in previous meetings, I asked that 2 members of my staff would have access to the meetings so that they can help me in the discharge of my duties.
Okay. Thank you for the reminder. I'll follow up with you separately just to make sure I have their email addresses. I apologize if material has not been sent to them.
Thank you. Attorney Harry Bess?
I really don't have anything to add. I do agree with Andy Ellis in his comments. I think we can definitely get this accomplished.
Thank you. Thank you. Ernest Lee.
I am here to do the work that needs to be done, and I aim to be as helpful as I can be. That is all.
Thank you. I think we've heard from every commissioner. I'll give one more last chance. If there are other people who want to have a final remark, now it's the time. And are there any other hands raised? All right. Commissioners, we have, the responsibility to review this material so that at our next meeting, we can discuss in greater detail and specificity and begin to record our recommendations and thinking for decision at a later time. I want to thank everyone for their input in this meeting, and I want to thank the staff in particular for the work that you did to prepare for this meeting and the presentations that you made. It was important to me that once this meeting was on the calendar that we go ahead and have it, in large part in consideration for what it means for the staff, because you work a full day and then you still have to give your time in the evening for this. So we are grateful for that. And I will reach out to you, Ben, for the scheduling of the next meeting after I have an opportunity to consult with the committee members.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, this meeting is adjourned. Good evening.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.